Hey guys, Chris Potter here. Today I'm going to be talking about what my dream healing expansion would look like, and some ideas for how to make healing the most fun possible. So let's look at the problems with healing in the current expansion. First of all, a lot of bosses are made that healers are only important to press their cooldowns at the correct time, or to spell people at the right time. On farm, this becomes even more true, and healers are basically irrelevant apart from a few key moments in the fight. This expansion has a lot of fights in which there are long periods of no healing required, except for some short burst moments or tilt mechanics such as line of sight, debuffs making players immune to healing, this kind of thing. Examples of that are Unat, Zakul, Queen Ashara, Carapace, and Nazoth. It's been obvious that healers have been an afterthought for boss design a lot of times throughout this expansion. On the Zoth, for example, there was literally no raid damage on the first PTR testing. It wasn't like it was in and it was bugged. They just forgot to make a mechanic that does damage so that the healers get to play the game as well. There's also been a lot of out of raid content which heavily favors DPS mains. Visions, world quests, island farming, Torghast in Shadowlands looks to add to this list. Also, healer balance has been heavily warped due to passive DPS being so important and damage reduction cooldowns being really valuable. So specs that bring them have just been so busted for progression. Let's talk about how to fix these problems. My first solution to making bosses better would be to have more bosses with constant heavy and mixed patterns of raid damage. Good examples of this, which already exist in the current expansion, are Shtar the Insatiable, Orgazoa in Phase 1, Mithrax, and Phase 2 of Jaina. As well as this, it would be cool if bosses had more mechanics where the healing output actively helps kill the boss. For example, it would be fun to have some bosses where you have to just pump the absolute most HPS because the boss is doing such heavy constant raid damage, and the raid should get a buff that increases their damage done based on their health percent. This is a fun way for healers to feel like they are actively contributing to the raid's DPS without having to stop healing. This would also help farm stay interesting, as on progress the boss might be tuned to have the raid's health between 30 and 60%, but on farm you can increase the raid DPS by pumping more heals to have the raid at 70 to 100%. In general, I'd like to see more patchwork type bosses where there is high healing requirements as well as a high DPS requirement. It's fun to be allowed to just pump your maximum output sometimes, but usually healers don't get to do this. In terms of healer balance, every healer should be given similar passive DPS. Passive DPS means they are DPSing the boss while they're still performing their max healing output. Currently, only Paladin, Disc Priest, and to a lesser extent Mistweaver do this. Druids could get a healing interaction with their dots, for example. Every time Moonfire deals damage, increase the healing of your next wild growth by 5%, stacking up to 50% or something. Sunfire could apply an effect similar to Paladin's Judgment of Life, where if you attack an enemy debuffed by it, it could heal those players. Resto Shaman, maybe Lava Burst could extend the duration of your active totems by a few seconds. Flame Shock Ticks could increase the healing of your next healing rain by a few percent, stacking up. Holy Priest Smites could increase the healing of their next Holy Word spells. Holy Fire Ticks could extend the duration of their renews and prayer amendings by a second. These are all hypotheticals, but finding some way to balance out the passive DPS would go a long way to fixing healer balance. Next is the issue of raid cooldowns. The classes with the shortest cooldowns on their burst healing should not also have additional damage reduction cooldowns. Yes, I'm talking about Disc and Paladin. They are fixing Paladin in this regard by increasing Wings cooldown. Still might be a class that has too much, who knows, but they're definitely moving the right direction with that in Shadowlands. But Disc Priest should definitely not have a 1 minute 30 advantage cooldown, as well as having Power Word Barrier. Druid, Monk, and Holy Priest should be given some sort of damage reduction spell or have their big healing cooldowns reducing cooldown, because it's just outrageous that they have such a longer cooldown on their throughput spells, but they don't have another spell that also does damage reduction, you know? There needs to be some tweaking there, I think. To healer gameplay, a lot of old interactions, either from Legion artifacts or old tier sets, would go a long way to making them feel more powerful and interactive. Simple things like, for Druid, having longer duration on Rejuve, and having Wild Growth casts actively heal all players with Rejuve, which by the way was an artifact passive. Mistweavers can gain back gameplay similar to HFC tier set called Extend Life. That was an absolutely amazing time to play Mistweaver in HFC with that set bonus. So fun. Paladins could get their BRF, Word of Glory / Eternal Flame type bonus from their tier set. Lots of things like these should just be passive to make the classes more fun to play. I don't know why they gave us all these fun interactions in the past and just started taking them away. Another thing that would make healers more important is reducing the amount of self-healing and defensive abilities that the average DPS class has. Right now in the game, the average class has maybe one big defensive or immunity, one smaller defensive or self-healing ability, some type of defensive ability gained through Azerite traits, engineering belt of their engineer, healing potion, and health stone. Some classes have even more self-healing than this, but I'm not gonna exaggerate just for one or two classes. While it's nice for DPS players to look after their own health, a lot of the time bosses with low damage income phases or infrequent enough damage require very little healing from the healers. If you think about all those things I just listed, there's so many for them to cycle through, and obviously they do need some healing. That you don't see us zero healing all the fights, but it does feel like a lot of the times you don't really need a healer. Ironically, the times when they actually do need to use their defenses and health stones and all that stuff, they don't always do it. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like taking them away would be a big move forward in making healing feel more impactful. As for out of raid content, maybe there is not much that can be done to make healers enjoy this gameplay. One wild idea is that when you're a healer spec doing solo or world content, you get a group of like friendly NPCs in your party, similar to what happens when you do a proving grounds. These NPCs should take a lot of damage, but also deal increasing damage based on their health. Expanding on this, something I thought of before that would actually be amazing and is a better alternative to the current healing dummies. If you guys know the healing dummies in, where the DPS dummies are, you can't use them at all to actually practice real healing. Imagine you could go into a proving grounds type scenario and have a 20-man raid filled with 19 friendly NPCs, and they all take varying amounts of damage. This could also have increasing difficulty, like Proving Grounds does. It would be an ideal way to try out different things for raid healing, as like I said, currently in the game, there is no way that you can actually like practice or try things out for raid healing, apart from queuing LFR, where there's literally no damage happening for you to heal. Looking back at past expansions, WoD and Legion healing classes were vastly more fun to play than BFA and Shadowlands Alpha. And if all else fails, Blizzard should honestly just look back and copy the class and boss designs of those expansions. I feel like Shadowlands will continue the poor design in healers and boss fights, sadly, at least at the start. I hope they can adapt to more balanced, fun, and engaging gameplay in the later tiers though. My extreme ideas for solo content and the healing dummy proving grounds type thing might be something they never do, but I honestly can't think of something more fun than being able to pump my HPS and compare to the other healers in the guild how hard a difficulty or how far we can get. It would be the equivalent of DPS players going to the DPS dummy and racing each other for DPS, which before all this random corruption damage existed in the game was something that DPS friends enjoyed doing. Thanks for watching the video. Please like or dislike the video however you feel, and make sure to subscribe and enable notifications to not miss out on new content. I've been Chris Potter. You can find me at twitch.tv/methodpotter or at methodpotter on Twitter. Thanks guys. Bye.